Welcome everybody. Welcome to the Pearl Locke. Gung Hei Fa Choi. We're so grateful that you all came out to Locke, and we're really looking forward to having you enjoy the lecture. I'm going to bring up Douglas Shaw. This is Douglas Shaw. He's a member of the Locke Foundation. He's a director. And let's give him a big hand.
Okay, so today I would like to present Miss Marnie Mendoza. She's former mayor of Colfax, and she's also representing our state treasurer Fiona Ma to give Locke Foundation the award. So, may I ask our chairman Stuart to come up to the stage to receive this honor from our state treasurer Fiona Ma.
So the first award that Fiona Ma is giving is to the Locke Foundation, and it says on here, on behalf of the Honorable Fiona Ma, California State Treasurer, joins in celebration with the Locke Foundation on occasion of the Lunar New Year, Year of the Horse. On behalf of the state of California, I hereby award this certificate of recognition in honor of your celebration of the Lunar New Year for the Year of the Horse. Thank you for celebrating this reverend tradition, promoting diversity within our state and fostering peace of the community. Congratulations and best wishes, Fiona Ma. And that's for the Locke Foundation. And the next one is to the Pearl. I'm not going to read it because it's the same wording. But on behalf of Fiona Ma, we are also recognizing the Pearl, which I believe is this building here. So here is.
And the owner is Mark Miller of the Pearl. We have two Mark Millers here, but we want a Mark Miller from the Pearl.
Whoever the Pearl belongs to, this goes to you.
Put your hand up, Mark.
Get up here.
Come
Get
on.
up here.
So Mark Miller is the proud owner of this prime assets of Locke.
Thank you for preserving this building. It's important. Thank you. Then the next one I have, again, I'm not going to read it again because it's repetitive, but on behalf of the Honorable Fiona Ma, State Treasurer Sharon Wong Fong, she wants to give you a thank you for your beauty and strength within the Asian and Pacific Islander community. Thank you for creating this cultural and educational experience, fostering greater mutual understanding within the Golden State. Congratulations and best wishes, and for continued success. Fiona Ma.
You guys want to come closer together and have a photo?
Yeah, we'll do a photo at the end.
Okay.
Okay, and then the next one that I have here is also individual, where Fiona is saying, thank you for your efforts to create this cultural and educational experience, fostering greater mutual understanding within the Golden State, which is very important. So thank you for your contributions. Lili Kan. And then I have one more individual one here. Please stay up and Bill?
Oh,
Because
Chris.
we're going to do a photo.
Chris.
Come on, Chris.
So the next individual that she is recognizing on their efforts of creating this cultural and educational experience, fostering greater mutual understanding within the Golden State, which is so important, especially in today's world. Thank you, Chris Lowe.
Come on up here, Miss Rose. Let's get a photo.
Yeah, we need to get a photo. And you guys, thank you. I'll just tell you a little bit of background about me. I'm the former mayor of Colfax. The Chinese history is very strong up there. We have the first continental trans #1, and that's where Colfax is where the Chinese went through the mountain. Without the Chinese immigrants, there would be no west to east. That we would not have went through that mountain without the Chinese. So that is why it is so important to recognize Chinese Americans. And yes, that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for being here and interested in this project. Thank you, Locke Foundation. The reason why I want to say it is I'm just a volunteer. And the foundation gave me a lot of support. They didn't know what I was doing because I didn't know what I was doing. So, and yet they supported me. And so this 1 year in the past that I have produced 3 panels. And to me, it's a magical year because I've learned a lot and I have absolutely no pressure other than I put it myself. So I decided to do an individual's family history research. And it's all pure my interest. I wasn't writing dissertation, nothing. I'm not a journalist. But Chris and Sharon helped me carry this. This project, 1-year project, could not be done without any one of us. Sharon gave me all the information about her family. Chris did all the designing. And I just run around asking questions, write down notes, So it's amazing in many ways. I didn't know them before. I still don't know them. But it's, I want you to have a chance to look at the 3 panels that I did, and it's Sharon's research of her family. This project actually had 2 parts. My 3 panels is only half of it. And the reason why she's here today, of course, is to complete the project. Without her story today, this is just hard data, you see the year born. But I want to give you a little bit about the 3 panels. To look at the 3 panels, first one is the vertical one with genealogy chart, family trees. And it's very important because I've heard a lot of people in the Delta try to explain how you're related. And oftentimes you would have to spend, hours just talking about such and such is my uncle's aunts and such, descendant. But by looking at the chart, you can very easily see how you're related in the chart. So it's a very simple chart that uses basically the triangle for male, the circle for females, and then you can learn to read it. And I told Sharon a genealogy chart or family tree is an open book. It's for you to add it on, and this is only 5 generations from her grandfather. And the more I learned about her family stories, it just brings me tears and move that is such an ordinary family. Not prominent, ordinary family, because so many ordinaries, they become extraordinary. To me, is really extraordinary. And the extraordinary part is how much they're still around, how much she's still contributing to the Delta Chinese history. So, there are thousands of Zhongshan and Cantonese came into the Delta at one point or another in history, but they left. And left no trails. But with Sharon, they would get a glimpse of it. And I want to quickly talk about myself, very simple. My name is Lili Kan, and I was born and raised in Taiwan. And I came here to go to graduate school, and I study anthropology. But then I raised kids, and then after I retired, then I renewed my interest. And so I feel very fortunate that at this time, a volunteer at the museum brings so much rewarding experience for me. And knowing Sharon really is part of it, the magical part. And then another one is Chris. I mean, when you're designing a panel, I just gave him little information about this and about that, and I said, I want this here, I want that there, and then in 2 days, he'll give me a design that I can print, in FedEx, and it'll come out that way. It's a new way of display history. And the 3 panel has 1 family tree. The second panel on the top would be, I want to give the Delta Chinese a historical background, including what's happening, the World War I, World War II, the fires in the Delta, the Chinese Exclusion Act, revolutions, and Sun Yat-sen was not in China in 1911 when it happened, when the revolution happened. But my husband's grandfather was in China. So a lot of little things that if you look through it, and by all means, if you want to take pictures for background, for reference, it's help yourself. And I would bring the 3 panels to the museum after today. And limited time, so you have time to. And then Chris, of course, like I said, it's I call him a magician, just to turn my words into display panel. And then Sharon. I didn't know her when I met her, and I still don't know her. But she had trusted me this whole year to give me a lot of things that I'm interested in. And I feel really fortunate to be able to I said, squeeze her brain. I squeeze the memory out of her. I mean, honestly, it's very difficult. I can see why it's difficult. I mean, you have to remember so many things for me, answer my questions. And so the panel number 3 is a photo album that when I saw the 1927 photo of her grandfather and the 8 children, I immediately know that that's one of the most important photos. And then the watercolor painting. When I first saw that, it's by Cheryl, your cousin Cheryl's husband, Randolph. I think it's here. It right away, that's the picture I want to put as a background for the panel. And I just want you to know that it's every bit of that display is very meaningful to me and to her. So I want to say, I don't know her contribution in the early days. I know she was a pharmacist, but what I want to tell you now is her contribution to the Locke Foundation. Number 1, she has 3 hours. 3 hours, very long. Oral history interview. 3 hours. Okay, so that's number 1 contribution. Number 2, the project. She gave me all the information, artifact display, panels making, and then she's giving a speech telling you stories about early days. That's another one. Number 3, she wrote 2 articles that I have an audio recorded by my daughter. And later on, if you were interested, we have information, you can QR code or link that you can listen about her story. And the one big reason I picked her and this story was her writing in the Locke Centennial book about Sunday dinners at Popo. So all of this come together. I would like to welcome Sharon.
Before I begin my lecture, I want to present gratitude to both Lili Kan and Chris Locke. Yes, I provided photos, documents, but it was the 2 of them that created this project to be not just simple, but very exceptional. And I hope you have a chance after my presentation to look more closely. Also, at that box on the counter are documents of my grandfather's past. I do want to say, let's give Lili and Chryslo thank you. I want to mention too that I have been in this building before. This is not my first time. Growing up in Locke, I would wander around, and this is one of the buildings that I came into. I remember there was a pool table in this particular building. So full circle, basically, as a teenager, I was in this building, and today I am doing a presentation, something that I would not have envisioned when I was a teenager. My interest in the history of my Owyang family in the Delta was not embedded at that time. My name is Sharon Wong Fong. I do not have the Owyang surname. However, Owyang blood flows through my body. My mother, basically Marian Owyang Wong, gave me many stories of which I base this presentation. I will talk about my grandfather, grandparents, family, and expand to that of my mother, Marian Owyang, and also expand to my trips to the ancestral village of Dai Lam. I am the eldest granddaughter of Gon Sing and Lum Shi Owyang, who retired to law in 1936. Gon Sing's father, pictured here, Chongqing, grew lychee fruit in China. China continues to harvest lychee, a practice of over 2,100 years. My grandfather Gon Sing farmed along the Sacramento River from 1914 to 1936. My grandmother Lum Shi arrived with her second son in December 1914. 8 children were born in America. The youngest, James Owyang, in Grandma's arm, recently turned 100 years old in 2025. Unfortunately, he passed away 6 months later. My mother, Marian Owyang, is on your left, standing there next to my grandfather, which I like to refer to as my gong gong. I grew up in Iolton, but traveled the 10 miles with my mother, Marian Owyang Wong, in the family car, a blue 1940 Chevy pickup truck to walk, frequently to attend Sunday dinners with Paw and special holidays gathering. It was during these times where I got to know my uncles, my aunts, and my first cousin. In the audience here are many of my first cousins. Thank you for coming. Exploring Locke with my first cousin was adventuresome and exciting. I dedicate this lecture to my brave and selfless uncles, Charles, Frank, and James, who served in the Army during World War II. They were among the 20,020 Americans who volunteered their service. My uncles were individually honored and given a bronze replica of the Congressional Gold Medal in 2020. Unfortunately, Charles and Frank had already passed away. However, Uncle Jim was still alive to receive this honor. My mother, Sharon Wong, was my storyteller. Throughout life, she would share tidbits of her early years growing up, her schooling, the Depression years, the discrimination. However, it was more intense when I lived full-time in her Ileton home during the last 7 years of her life. My mother and I are pictured on a trip to Hawaii. It was only recently that I found my Owyang family to be one of diplomats. I thought of my grandfather as a simple farmer. However, I found that his father's first cousin, Ming Owyang, was the first consul general to America in the year 1885. Subsequent diplomats were King and brother Ki Owyang. Pictured here, King was among the first group of 120 students sent from China to study in America. He attended Yale. Initially, my grandfather worked in San Francisco in the garment industry, later coming to the Sacramento River Delta where other Oyyangs were working on pear orchards. With his limited English, he was a tenant sharecropper on various ranches along the Sacramento River. On this map, basically from Freeport down to Ileton are various ranches, and basically he farmed on 4 different ranches. When he wasn't able to make money on one, he was moved his entire family to another. Most of the time, he was in Hood. Throughout the years he farmed, as I mentioned, Clarksburg, Hood, Cortland, and retired in Locke in 1937. This is a page of my grandfather's detailed record of the children born in America. Charles Whalum was the firstborn, as you see, 1915 August, location. How many fathers would record this information in a book? He did this with all 8 children that was born in America. If you look on the bottom, there would be dates in Chinese. It would be the time of their birth. And it was very interesting that he wrote in English and Chinese. The next photo is my mother, Honsam. Marion was born in 1916. If you note the first one, Charles, he gave the name Charles followed by Chinese name. I'm just wondering if the owner of the land where he farmed was named Charles, because the next 3 daughters, only the Chinese name was listed. My mother didn't receive an English name until she entered school in Freeport. She later graduated from Ileton Union Elementary School in 1933 at the age of 16. I want to mention it was the Oriental school that she attended. Iolton was one of 4 schools in California that had an Oriental school. Cortland, Walnut Grove, Iolton, and the town of Florin. So her classmates were either Chinese or Japanese. I, on the other hand, was able to attend Iolton Elementary School probably in the late 1940s. The school was integrated at that time. So there was a vast difference in her education. The teachers were English, American, and the children basically would speak English and play among themselves. For some reason, because of history of Japan invading China, the Chinese students did not play with the Japanese students. As I mentioned, she graduated in 1933 at the age of 16, perhaps later than what would be expected. I suspect the different schools was because of the various moves that was made during her life. A little tidbit that my mother shared with me. She remembers bringing quince jelly sandwiches for lunch. Quince is not a very popular fruit these days. Children now bring strawberry, blueberry, whatever. But apparently a quince tree was growing on the ranch, and my grandmother made a preserve of the quince. My Gungung farm from 1915 to 1936 until he retired to Locke. I remember his home on Yi Gai, Cantonese or 2nd Street. This is a watercolor painting of their house in Locke by my first cousin's husband, Randolph Chog. Randy, can you wave, please? Randy is waving. As you see, the house is still standing. If you wander to the back, it's probably the White House that belongs now to another Owyang cousin. Basically, descendants of that family still owns the property. So since 1936, an Owyang family has occupied that building. This photo is of my grandmother continuing to live in Locke. She continued to garden and attended activities at the Locke Christian Center. She is on the 2nd row, looks like she's nodding off. Can you see that? Anyway, it was the Locke Christian Center that I, as a child, would attend during the holidays, basically, especially during Christmas, where they handed out packages of fruits and candy. In 1959, she sold her home, went to live with her youngest brother, son James. My fondest memory of my grandparents' home in Locke was Sunday dinner in fall. I will read a portion of the article, which was published in the Locke Centennial book. My Owyang family was one of fishermen and good cooks. My uncles and aunts would come to Locke on the weekend. The men usually went fishing at their favorite fishing hole and frequently came home with a variety of fish, depending on the season. Seldom would they come home skunked, which I learned later was not catching a single fish. The fish I remember were black bass, striped bass, catfish, sturgeon, and perch. Many times they would bring home fish still alive, the hook still attached to the mouth. The fish would be scaled and cleaned in the back of the house. In the meantime, Papa cooked the fish in various ways, whether fried, steamed, or stir-fried. Sometimes the striped bass would be eaten raw in a salad of iceberg lettuce, cilantro, minced green onions, and peanuts. A condiment of white vinegar and dry and dark sesame oil was sprinkled on the salad. My grandfather Gonsing was a tenant sharecropper, meaning he lived on the ranch full-time. He was given a house for his family, which grew to 8 born in America. My mother remembers being poor, but eating well. Fruits and vegetables were plentiful. Chicken and pigs were raised, although it was my grandmother who did much of the cooking. My mother recalled that her father would sometimes make wonton soup. She remembered sitting upstairs in their bedroom, anxiously waiting for the midnight snack, which we call siuya. Those of you Cantonese would understand that, siuya. Marion stayed on the farm and helped her mother with daily chores. It was important to the family that the boys attended high school and beyond. My mother married my father, Sing Wong, in 1936, and together they opened their first business. If you go back to the previous slide, this is my mother, who was also a fisherwoman. Notice the striped bass that she caught. The size, the length, almost the same as a 2 or 3 year old child. The child is a neighbor's child. So basically, my mother also went fishing. My parents opened a business called National Cafe in Ileton. 2 years later, my parents opened another business. However, my father was not a U.S. citizen. Thus, he could not obtain an alcohol beverage license. My mother, being much younger than my father, at the age of 21, purchased the license for National Cafe. My parents operated a beer and wine tavern until 1972, when a flood affected Ileton. Marion also worked outside her home in the nearby cannery, attaining the status of forelady. Although she only finished the 8th grade in 1933, an opportunity to be in charge of the payroll for a farm labor contractor came about in the late 1950s. Mexican braceros picked tomatoes during the harvest season. My mother was very sharp. She was capable of filling her own tax return all her life. How many of you file your own tax return? Very few. Marion helped many Chinese in the community as translator. In fact, she helped many to register and became voters. In 1950, Ileton's landowner, Mr. Gardner, offered Chinese immigrants to buy the plot of land for $1,000. There was a time where those who were not citizens could not buy the land on which their building stood. Such happened in Locke. In Ileton, many Chinese rejected the offer, thinking, I'm going back to China. I'm not living here permanently in America. Unfortunately, their children remained in America and started families. So basically, the offer to buy the plot of land at $1,000 went up to $2,000 at a later time. My mother was appointed Grand Marshal in the Ileton Chinese New Year Parade in 1995. Pictured with her is my brother, Don. On the side, I want to share with you another tidbit. If you came to visit her at her home, and it was close to dinner, she would ask the guests, stay for dinner. If I was there, I would wonder, what is she going to cook for them? She was able to whip up a meal, cooking whatever she had in the freezer, in the refrigerator, what she was growing in the garden. I want to credit my grandmother, perhaps, for teaching my mother how to cook for a how to cook for unexpected guests. My grandmother, as I mentioned, had 8 children in a period of 10 years. They were very close together. In 2004, I planned the first Owyang reunion in Ileton. My mother had told me that all Oweyangs, regardless of how the surname was spelled, were related. Over on this panel, the box on the counter is her address book. I was able to get the address of Owyang cousins who she shared Christmas cards with. I sought out email addresses, and more than 200 Oweyangs attended, mostly from San Francisco, Bay Area, and Sacramento. Since then, there have been 6 reunions in different locations. The 20th anniversary reunion was held in Ileton in October 2024. Close to 100 attended. 2 years after the first reunion in 2004, a group of 22 Oweyangs traveled to our common ancestral village of Dailan. Look at the banner. We were warmly greeted. Welcome back to hometown Dailan. Even though those in our group did not live or grow up in Dailan, it was our ancestors who did. It was a welcome that included myself, my first cousins, my third cousin, my 7th cousin once removed, and so on. This was my second trip to Dailan. This is at the Owyang headquarters. My first trip was in 1991 with my mother, Marion, and daughter, Stephanie. We were able to trek up the hill to pay respects to my mother's brother, Gonsing, and Lamshi's oldest son, who remained in the Owyang in Dailan village. The village in 91 was surrounded by rice fields, water buffaloes, pigs, and dogs wandering freely. The next pictures show on the left the ancestral, the home, and the right is the modern home that was built in 1990. Notice the difference. 1990, basically, in the audience is one of the sons of my uncle who remained in China, and basically it was he and his brother who rebuilt this 3-story building. My last return to Thailand was in 2018. In fact, the audience are some people who went on this roots trip. The village had shrunk. It was surrounded by tall industrial buildings and busy roadways. Gone were the rice fields, the water buffaloes, the pigs, and the dogs. Before I conclude, I would like to read a last paragraph of my article, Sunday Dinners with Pawpaw. I am a 3rd-generation Chinese American. I am proud of my heritage in the Sacramento River Chinatowns, including Locke. I am proud of my brave and risk-taking grandfather who chose to come to America for a better future. I am indebted to my pioneer, hardworking grandmother who taught me the importance of family and the manners and ways of being a granddaughter. My grandparents are a part of the history of Locke, the history of Chinese families living and prospering in their own community. Their home of Locke. This is what the Chinese called Locke. This final photo basically shows the relationship of myself, Chris Lowe, and Lili Kan. If you can look up closely, essentially what I'm trying to show is that as a child, I would visit Chris Lowe's great-grandmother, I think that's right, in San Francisco. Basically, little would I know that I would be working on this project with Chris Lowe. His mother, sister are in the audience today. I just want to conclude that, as I mentioned earlier, my mother said all Owyang's, regardless of how they spell their surname, are related in some manner. Thank you for attending the lecture. I'm sure you may have questions. I will try to answer to the best of my ability. Do stay and look at the charts. Do stay, as there will be a film shown about titled Voices in the
Chinese women of the Delta.
Sacramento River Delta. Any questions?
Sharon,
Yes.
did you experience any discrimination as you were growing up?
Being 3rd-generation Chinese American, I would say no. My mother faced a lot of discrimination. When I went to school, as I mentioned, to the Ileton Union Elementary School, my classmates were white, Mexicans, Filipino, and I, in fact, was a campfire girl. If you can remember campfire girls, I went on camping trips, I went on bicycle trips. So I would say, despite the early discrimination given to my grandfather and my parents, I was, like I said, 3rd-generation, not being, and living a life very freely. I want to mention, perhaps, I continue to be part of the Delta. I am a docent at the Ileton Museum, and I lead tours of both Ileton and Locke. In fact, in May of this year, I will lead a tour from my senior community of Rossmore in Walnut Creek and another senior community in Pleasant Hill. Despite the fact of my not being part of the community, my heart is still here. I'm proud of what the contribution that was done. My grandfather, not a hero per se, was part of the Chinese who built the agricultural growth of Central California. As I mentioned, he worked on the pear orchards, and basically the pear orchards from Freeport down to Rio Vista is a very important part of the history of the pear industry in California. Any other questions? Yes.
So, when you were a kid, did you ever visit San Francisco, and how did you get there?
Okay. When I was a child, only my parents would go to San Francisco. They would go there to buy food, grocery. My brother and I stayed home. I want to say that growing up in a small town, being pampered, maybe if that's not the word, maybe being, pampered and told, don't go to the Japanese side of town because they don't want you. Don't go to the American part of town because you're Chinese, okay? So basically, when I grew up to be 18, I went to college. I chose to practice pharmacy in the Bay Area, where I have to say I did not receive discrimination. I'm very fortunate to not have any direct discriminatory remarks made to me. Maybe in the sense of, I moved to Rossmore where Mandarin speaking residents was prominent. I was approached by a resident who said, Sharon, you're not Chinese, you don't speak Mandarin. I go, why? I said, my grandfather came more than 100 years ago to America from southern Chinese. He only spoke Cantonese. I said, can't you remember that third generation Chinese Americans may not speak, may not write, but still is a Chinese American. I do want to say that I became president of the Chinese American Club in Rossmore. I was the first person who, English speaking, did not speak Cantonese or Chinese, but I was able to accomplish my leadership. Yes.
You have told your grandfather come from as a paper son
Okay.
long time ago.
My grandfather came during the exclusion era claiming to be a student. That was one of the classifications. If you said I'm a laborer, you would not be allowed. I do not have any records, evidence of his status as being a student. I was told that possibly the fact that he came from a family of prominent consul generals, that they may have influenced immigration to allow him to come to America. But I have no evidence of the fact. Like I said, my mother said Gong Gong came to America as a student. And basically, had he not come, our family of 8 children, and as you see, 5 generations of us on the chart are American citizens. Does that answer your question? Okay. All right, so basically following my presentation, I don't know when the voices will be shown. basically, the Voices is produced.
It's developed by the Locke Foundation. We
Locke
were doing
Foundation
oral
will show
history
it.
interviews, and a lot of the people we interviewed were women. We realized we really didn't hear from the women, and so that resulted in us making a documentary about women's voices in development. But Sharon, take as much time as you need to answer questions.
How long did you live in Boston?
I arrived in Rossmore in 2012,
Wow.
and basically as I mentioned, I was president of the Chinese American Club in 2020. I continued to play mahjong. I was active as I was in the Chinese American Club. Currently, I play table tennis and pool.